He was just a quiet janitor from Indiana, till one song changed his life forever. But what the world didn't see on that glittering stage was the secret he carried. The battles he was still fighting behind every note. What if the spotlight you dreamed of became the weight that nearly crushed you? Stay with us, as this story takes a turn no one saw coming. Before the world discovered him, Richard was just a janitor in Terre Haute, Indiana. Pushing mops through school hallways, he hummed quietly to himself while cleaning up the echoes of others' dreams. Music, his original calling, had long been buried under the weight of responsibility. Yet, destiny has a strange way of circling back. Kids began to notice. His voice wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. It rang out through the halls like a forgotten legend waking up. Then, one unassuming day, a student recorded him performing at a school assembly. That short video didn't just go viral, it exploded. 1 million views in a week. People around the country were stunned. Who was this man? This everyday hero whose voice could rival the greats. And that's when the story took a surreal twist. Simon Cowell, the sharpest ear in global talent, heard about Richard and was immediately drawn in. What happened next felt like something out of a movie. Richard, who'd never traveled far from home, suddenly found himself flying out to audition for America's Got Talent. Cameras, crowds, lights. It was a world he'd only seen on TV. But real life doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. He had Angie, his fiancée, cheering from afar, and memories of his late wife still echoing in his heart. Success felt thrilling, but it also felt fragile. When Richard finally stepped on stage, nerves were high. The moment he opened his mouth, though, everything changed. But it wasn't just his voice that stunned the judges. It was Simon's reaction. "Richard, I don't accept this," he said. The audience froze. But then came the twist. "I don't accept this as just a performance. This is a moment." That line hit like lightning. The crowd erupted. Richard's rendition of "Don't Stop Believin'" shook the stage. Every judge stood. A janitor from Indiana had become a national phenomenon. Though behind the curtains, something was unraveling. Was it all too good to be true? That question lit up every comment section. Rumors swirled online. Simon finally confirmed that AGT had been scouting Richard weeks in advance, something the producers hadn't disclosed. Was the story as organic as it appeared? Or had the machine already set the stage? While fans clung to the fairy tale, Richard's life was rapidly transforming. Gone were the janitorial routines. Now it was rehearsals, interviews, and training. And yet, fame brought a unique pressure, the kind that creeps in quietly. Angie could see it. He smiled for the cameras, but in private moments he still whispered the name of his late wife. The grief hadn't vanished. It just wore new clothes. Everywhere he went, people called him the singing janitor. Supermarkets, airports, gas stations. He was recognized, applauded, but also watched. There was something pure about his story, but also something deeply vulnerable. Simon saw it too. At the next round of AGT, Richard took the stage again, this time singing an Elton John ballad. His voice soared, full of texture and aching beauty. The final note fell. You could hear the silence. Simon leaned forward. "Richard," he began slowly, "you're different. There's something in your story people connect with. But there's also something you're not telling us." What was he holding back? Online discussions exploded. Some said it was about money. Was Richard in debt? Others speculated on his personal losses, suggesting untold tragedy. But the truth, as always, was layered. Backstage, Richard was feeling it too. The excitement of rising stardom was crashing against a wall of private burdens. Richard wasn't just singing for fame. He was singing through pain, through memories, through fears of failing those who now saw him as hope incarnate. The applause grew louder, but so did the inner pressure. What most people didn't see was Richard's modest financial world now colliding with high-stakes show business. He'd lived a simple life. No luxury homes, no high-end cars, just a used pickup, a modest rental, and a second-hand watch he rarely took off. Suddenly, executives were offering deals, sponsorships, appearance contracts. But navigating that world came with uncertainty. Richard began consulting with professionals to get his new life insured. From health to potential career disruptions, he wasn't chasing excess. He was trying to protect his future. Whispers that a record label was offering him a contract with a 7-figure advance. But Richard hesitated. He didn't just want wealth. He wanted stability. A man who'd spent decades worrying about bills doesn't gamble everything overnight. Here's the lesson no one talks about. Sudden fame without financial strategy is a recipe for collapse. Richard started investing in a small-town property, not a Beverly Hills mansion. Looked into conservative index funds, not flashy crypto. It wasn't glamorous, but it was smart. His choices reflected something rare in this business: humility with vision. Still, something was shifting. Even Simon began dropping cryptic comments, hinting that behind Richard's glow was a shadow. And as AGT's spotlight grew hotter, the tension behind the scenes stretched tight. Each performance drew standing ovations, yet when Richard stepped off the stage, a crushing silence followed. Between rehearsals, he retreated into himself, quietly humming ballads from the 80s, haunted by memories of his late wife. She had been the first to believe in his talent, long before the world noticed. Now every lyric felt like a message to her. Producers urged him to share more of his past, camera crews hoping for a tearful moment to boost ratings, but Richard offered only fragments, never the whole truth. Some stories were too sacred to sell. One night, everything shifted. A phone call came in. Someone close to Richard had taken seriously ill. The glittering promise of stardom dulled in an instant. Angie, ever his anchor, begged him not to give up now. "I've come too far," she whispered, fighting her own fear. He stood at a crossroads, the lights of AGT on one side and the warmth of home on the other. That tension followed him into his next performance, visible in the tremor of his hands and the slight crack in his voice as he poured his soul into another power ballad. The judges loved it. The audience was breathless. But then Simon leaned in and asked, "Do you really want this, Richard?" The room fell silent. Richard couldn't answer. Backstage, rumors swirled. Was he too fragile for the pressure? Did he harbor a devastating secret that fame only made worse? Some guessed financial issues, others assumed old emotional scars were reopening. The truth, like his voice, was layered, complex, and heartbreaking. He wasn't falling apart because of fame. He was drowning in the waves that came with it. Terre Haute, his small Indiana hometown, became a buzzing hive of hope and concern. Local TV segments hailed him as their hometown hero. Old neighbors organized viewing parties. Homemade signs reading "Sing, Richard, Sing" waved proudly every week. Yet the attention made him feel more exposed than ever. Journalists started digging, finding traces of unpaid medical bills, rumors of a failed band, and whispers of quiet debt. Headlines read like melodrama: "Janitor's hidden struggles," and "Simon Cowell confirms rumors of emotional breakdown." For Richard, each headline felt like another layer of armor being stripped away. During one emotional video call, he told Angie, "Everyone expects me to be happy. I should be, but it feels like I'm losing myself." He feared he had become a symbol instead of a man, his identity wrapped in applause rather than truth. At AGT, his missed press appearance only fueled more speculation. Exhaustion, the official word. But those closest to him knew it was more than that. It was emotional depletion. Behind the scenes, Simon Cowell approached Richard again. Not as a judge, but as a human being. "Fame or peace," he said softly. "Sometimes you can't have both." Richard didn't respond. He couldn't. His eyes shimmered with unspoken pain. In the midst of the emotional whirlwind, fans continued to rally. His story was magnetic. Humble beginnings, raw talent, unexpected fame. One saw the cracks forming under the pressure. As his fan base swelled, so did the weight on his shoulders. Semi-finals night arrived. Richard stood behind the curtains, microphone in hand, more alone than ever. Every name in his phone, Angie, his late wife's sister, his middle school principal, flashed through his mind like lifelines, each one representing another version of the man he used to be. This moment wasn't just about singing anymore. It was about survival. Behind the glamour and gold, one truth pulsed quietly: not all stars shine. Some flicker under the weight of expectations, and as Richard walked toward the stage, the nation waited. Not just to hear him sing, but to find out whether this storybook journey would end in triumph, something else. But Richard's story isn't the only one drawing whispers behind the scenes. Fans were shocked when news broke that another AGT alum, Michael Grimm, had quietly sold two of his Las Vegas properties, rise condos once worth over $1.5 million, just months apart. Insiders say Grimm faced financial strain after stepping back from touring. Once seen wearing Audemars Piguet watches and chauffeured in a sleek Bentley Continental GT, the soulful crooner now lives more modestly, choosing clarity over luxury. Real estate empire dwindled, yet his decision sparked renewed conversations about celebrity finances. Grimm's past deals included a $300,000 stake in a boutique recording studio, one that he quietly exited 2 years ago. With few public appearances since, his net worth dropped from an estimated $3.8 million to under $1.5 million. But he's not broke. Shifting. Business insiders say he's restructuring, redirecting assets into long-term funds, and investing in health insurance policies that include career disruption clauses. Growing trend in Hollywood as stars learn to prepare not just for success, but for burnout. If making it to the finals meant a new life, failure would bring him back to mopping school hallways in Terre Haute. But something had changed. Could he ever go back? As the lights dimmed and the AGT stage flooded with cheers, Richard stepped forward, clutching the mic like it was the only thing keeping him from unraveling. The band played a soft intro, and Richard's voice floated into the air, tender, weathered, trembling with something deeper than fear. Then, halfway through, he faltered. A breath caught in his throat. Silence. For a moment it looked like everything would fall apart. Then came the surge. His voice cracked but carried through, each note soaked in raw grief. When he finished, the room exploded into applause, but Richard stood frozen in a sea of sound, trembling. Simon Cowell leaned forward. His words sliced through the chaos. "Richard, everyone's been guessing. I'm going to say it. You're carrying something massive. I think part of you fears that moving forward means letting go of the past." The crowd fell silent. Richard couldn't speak. He just nodded, overwhelmed, as tears traced down his face. That moment, caught in millions of living rooms across the country, sent shockwaves online. Simon Cowell confirms rumors became an overnight headline, but what mattered wasn't the trending hashtags. It was the heartbreak they revealed. Backstage, the air buzzed with concern. Producers whispered about his stability. Was he strong enough to carry this emotional weight if he won? Rumors of a record deal hung in the air like a ticking clock, but Richard didn't care. He retreated into a dark corridor behind the stage, curling up near old sound equipment, and broke down completely. He had just bared his soul in front of the world, yet felt more alone than ever. Then came the moment that cracked everything wide open. Backstage reporter, hungry for an exclusive, asked him the question he'd been avoiding for months. "What's really behind the pain in your voice?" Richard hesitated. Then, almost in a whisper, he answered, "I lost my wife to cancer. I didn't want to turn that into a story. But truth is, I've been drowning ever since." That quiet confession sent social media into meltdown. Fans rallied behind him. Celebrities tweeted messages of solidarity. Sympathy poured in from every corner. The first time the mystery surrounding Richard's grief had a name. And suddenly, everything made sense. Simon Cowell addressed it the next morning in a radio interview. "I knew from day one he was singing through something heavy," Simon said. "Sometimes, the only way through that kind of loss is to share it." That's what he did last night. Back home, Angie sat with tearful eyes, watching it all unfold. He never wanted pity, she told a local news crew. Just wanted to sing. "I'm proud he finally let the world see what he's been carrying." The public adored him even more. But the machine behind the scenes had a different agenda. Producers wanted a special segment, one that dove deeper into his late wife. The funeral, the love story, the pain. Richard was horrified. "This isn't a soap opera," he said through gritted teeth. He locked himself in a rehearsal booth, silencing his phone, avoiding everyone but Angie. She alone could reach him. Her words were simple. "Opening up doesn't dishonor her. It honors your strength." That gave him enough clarity to make a move. The next day, his Instagram lit up with a post that stopped fans in their tracks. "I sing because it's how I learned to breathe again. Thank you for listening." Thousands of comments followed. Prayers, memories from fans who had lost loved ones too. Suddenly, Richard's voice wasn't just a gift. It was a mirror reflecting thousands of untold stories. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his voice heavy. "What you gave us tonight wasn't just music. It was your soul. But then came the pause. Success doesn't always heal the pain, Simon added, casting a meaningful look across the panel. Instantly, social media lit up with the words "Simon Cowell finally confirms rumors." Fans flooded timelines wondering if Richard was about to walk away from everything. The bittersweet truth? He'd won the show but might be losing himself in the process. Backstage, chaos churned. Producers scrambled with contracts, brand offers, and press schedules. Richard stood amid it all, dazed, the victory barely registering. Had achieved what most only dream of. But dreams don't always prepare you for what comes next. That final performance felt like a culmination, not a beginning. Could he really go from janitor to global star overnight and stay grounded? Or would the fame undo the very man who won hearts by simply being honest? The confetti had barely settled when Richard was swept into a whirlwind of fame. Talk shows, endorsements, music deals. He was offered a guest role in a hit sitcom, a front-row seat at Paris Fashion Week, and a lucrative fragrance deal, all within 2 weeks. Behind the glamour was a man quietly fraying. Paparazzi caught him staring blankly in airports, refusing to answer questions. Whispers grew louder. Was Richard rejecting fame? Or was fame rejecting him? Some offers he turned down immediately. He wasn't ready to trade sincerity for sensationalism. It sparked online backlash. Is Richard Goodall throwing away his shot? But local news back in Terre Haute told a different story. Former co-workers defended his choices, calling him principled, humble, and grounded in values that don't chase spotlights. One even said, he never sang for fame. He sang because he had to. Then came the financial rumor. Some claimed Richard hadn't touched his prize money. Others suggested he was still paying off old debts. Truth, Richard had started consulting a financial advisor to protect the future he never thought he'd have. His net worth, previously modest, shot up to an estimated $1.5 million after the AGT win. But he wasn't flaunting it. No Lamborghinis, no diamond watches. Just a reliable Range Rover and a modest new home near his hometown. A far cry from Hollywood extravagance. Instead of chasing mansions in Malibu, Richard invested quietly. A stake in a music therapy nonprofit, small shares in emerging tech startups, and a trust fund set up in his late wife's name for cancer research. He declined a private jet, but did take out a comprehensive insurance policy, covering his vocal health, tour travel risks, and even psychological support. It was a subtle message. He wasn't here to impress, he was here to endure. The biggest financial lesson? That staying grounded is sometimes the most radical wealth strategy of all. Instead of letting fortune define him, Richard used it to protect the things that mattered most: his loved ones, his integrity, and his ability to sing without breaking. Simon's parting advice echoed louder than any audience cheer. Don't have to shine the way the world expects. Shine the way you need to. Days later, back home, Richard visited the school where he once mopped hallways. Teachers cried, students cheered. And Richard said just one thing: fame didn't save me, but maybe it gave me a second chance to heal. And maybe that's the real win. Not the trophy, not the label deals, but the quiet victory of choosing peace over performance. Richard Goodall's story isn't just about talent. It's about resilience, restraint, and the bravery to let the world see every crack in your armor. You have walked away or stood your ground like he did. Let us know in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most extraordinary stars come from the most ordinary places. From unexpected fame to unspoken pain, Richard Goodall reminded us that even the brightest spotlight can cast shadows. If you felt that too, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. We've got even more unbelievable journeys coming your way, because sometimes the biggest stars are the ones who never chased it.